I just had this Toyota Prius towed to my garage because it died on the highway. And now I'm going to use it as an example why you might not think about purchasing an older used hybrid car. Now it had no power, so I put a big old Mercedes-Benz battery in and jump-started it. Then when I put in the key, it started right up. But the warning light, the check engine light, and the battery light all came on. So I checked the charging system and found out that it wasn't putting out any charging voltage at all. So I checked all the fuses and relays and they were all perfectly fine. Then I thought, hey, it just needs a new alternator. But guess what? The Toyota Prius doesn't have an alternator. It uses a generator that's built into the transfer case. Now, if it would have been an older Toyota like this old Celica, the alternator's right here. You just take off a couple of bolts and a fan belt and replace the alternator. You could get a rebuilt one for $100 or so and put it on in about 10 minutes. But sadly, in this hybrid system, that's not the case. It doesn't use an alternator to charge the battery, it uses a generator. Inside the transfer case here, it's not separately serviceable. I did a lot of research on the internet, and you have to buy the entire transfer assembly for $3,459.68. And as if that wasn't bad enough, it takes over 10 hours of labor to take it all apart and put it all back together again. So most places are going to charge over $5,000 to do the job. And that's versus $100 on this old car if you do it yourself, or just a few hundred if you pay a mechanic. And unfortunately, in these 2002 Priuses, it's very common for the generators to short out. They overheat and melt. And unless you want to keep buying giant batteries and recharging them to drive the car, you have to fix it to make it a drivable machine. So if you're thinking about going green and buying an older used hybrid car, you might think twice before all your green goes away fixing it.
The first thing you have to do is find a good location to mount the hydrogen generator. Usually in front of the radiator or behind the front bumper is a good place in most vehicles. The radiator shroud on the Honda Civic is easily removed with 4 pull tabs to gain access to that area in front of the radiator. After the shroud is removed, there's 2 Allen keys that will loosen the front grille, but the front grille does not come off completely. It's attached to the bumper. After removing the screw, simply lift up on the hood latch cable, and that should give you plenty of room to mount your hydrogen cell. The engine bay in the Civic's a little tight, so we modified the factory mounting bracket for the battery and moved it forward about 1 inch so we can make room for the reservoir, and actually mounted it directly to the intake. Routing the hoses is relatively easy if you follow the instructions. One goes from the bottom of the reservoir to the bottom of the generator, comes out of the top of the generator, goes into the side of the reservoir, which acts as a bubbler, then out of the top of the reservoir, around into the dryer tank, and then into the intake. Between the battery and the cell, there's a circuit breaker and a relay to turn the cell on and off with the vehicle. We only want the cell running when the vehicle's on, so tapping into either an accessory wire in the fuse box or off the alternator on the Honda Civic, the black wire with the yellow stripe off the alternator is connected to ignition 2. So ignition 1 turns on the radio, ignition 2 is when the vehicle's running. So we simply tapped into the wire off the alternator for ignition 2, ran it up to the relay to turn it on so that the cell only turns on with the vehicle.